When people picture World War II in winter, they imagine soldiers freezing in foxholes, snow piled against tanks, and breath turning to ice. What almost never gets discussed is this. Many World War II troops were not defeated by the cold because they learned how to live inside it. Across Europe and the Eastern Front, soldiers, engineers and civilians occupied cabins, huts and improvised shelters that stayed livable through brutal winters, often with less fuel, less technology and fewer materials than we have today. These weren't accidents. They were the result of hard-earned knowledge about heat, airflow, ground insulation and human survival. And here's the uncomfortable question. If people under wartime scarcity figured this out 80 years ago, why do modern builders keep ignoring these principles now, when energy is expensive and winters are just as unforgiving? To answer that, we need to look closely at how World War II cabins actually worked. You know, what most people misunderstand about World War II heating is that fire was not the main strategy. A small stove, sometimes barely more than a metal box, was enough, because, honestly, the structure itself did most of the work. Walls trapped warmth, floors stopped heat loss, and, well, airflow was tightly controlled. The lesson is simple but often forgotten. The cheapest heat is the heat you don't lose. You see, cabin floors back then were treated as thermal barriers, not just as surfaces to walk on. It's interesting to note that one of the biggest mistakes in modern cabins is, well, ignoring the ground. But, you know, the World War II builders, they never did. So, cabin floors were often raised just a bit or layered with materials like packed earthwood planks, straw pine boughs, or even sand. The goal wasn't really about comfort, you know. It was to break contact with the frozen ground, which acts like a heat sink. In Eastern Europe, German and Soviet winter huts often used double-layered floors with air gaps. That trapped still air, which is, quite frankly, one of the best natural insulators available. Today, concrete slabs sit directly on cold soil and bleed heat non-stop. World War II builders understood something modern construction often forgets. Cold rises when it's allowed to steal heat below you. World War II cabins were not sleek. They were bulky, uneven and dense. Logs, earth-filled walls, turf blocks and layered planks created thermal mass. During the day, even weak sunlight or body heat slowly warmed these walls. At night, that stored warmth radiated back inward. This is why, you know, many wartime huts actually felt warmer hours after the stove was extinguished. The structure itself acted like a battery. Modern lightweight walls, well, they heat up fast, but they cool just as fast too. True builders chose mass over speed because survival favors stability, not convenience. Glass loses heat faster than almost any other building material. Tree builders knew this instinctively. Cabins use small windows, often recessed deeply into thick walls. Many had wooden shutters or cloth coverings sealed at night. In extreme cold, windows were sometimes partially blocked with translucent materials to reduce airflow while still allowing light. Compare that to modern cabins filled with large panes of glass for views. Beautiful, but thermally disastrous. The wartime lesson is blunt. If you can see the cold, it can see you too. In World War II cabins, stoves were rarely centered just for aesthetics. Instead, they were placed where heat could flow naturally, often near internal walls rather than exterior ones. This allowed warmth to spread through adjoining spaces instead of leaking outdoors. Some cabins even used simple heat channels, like stone or metal surfaces positioned to guide rising air across sleeping areas. Modern homes, often prioritize design symmetry over airflow physics, but World War II builders prioritized one thing only: keeping people alive through the night. High ceilings look impressive, but they're also terrible in cold environments. During the Second World War, cabins kept ceilings low, sometimes, honestly, uncomfortably so. Heat rises, and every extra cubic foot of air above your head is basically wasted warmth. Some huts even used hanging fabric or temporary inner ceilings to reduce volume during the winter months. This principle alone can cut heating needs dramatically, but, modern architecture continues to ignore it in favor of visual openness. Rather than heating entire structures, World War II occupants focused on localized warmth. Bunks were raised off the floor, placed against interior walls, and sometimes enclosed with blankets or wooden panels. Body heat accumulated, and drafts were blocked. This wasn't primitive, it was efficient. Modern heating systems try to warm everything equally, but, WWII survival strategies focused on warming people, not space. A sealed cabin is dangerous. WWII builders knew that too. Ventilation was, deliberate and minimal, designed just to remove moisture and smoke without flushing out the heat. Small vents near stoves or up at the ceilings allowed stale air to escape slowly. Modern cabins often swing between extremes, being either airtight or, drafty. Wartime builders aimed for balance because, honestly, condensation, mold, and carbon monoxide were just as deadly as the cold. Roofs were insulated with whatever worked, not what looked good. In the past, a variety of materials were ingeniously used for roof insulation. Sod roofs, layered planks, packed earth, moss, and even snow were all employed to keep the warmth in and the cold out. Snow, when left undisturbed, serves as an excellent insulator. During the Second World War, some cabins were designed to allow snow to accumulate deliberately on their roofs, with the understanding that it would trap warmth below. These days, snow is often seen as a nuisance that needs to be cleared away. However, back in the days of the Second World War, builders viewed it as a fortuitous gift from the heavens, free insulation falling from the sky. Orientation mattered. Entrances were placed away from prevailing winds, and structures were often partially embedded into hillsides or tucked along forest edges for wind protection. Modern cabins, they chase views, cliff edges, open fields, exposed ridgelines, but during the Second World War, cabins chased shelter first and beauty came second. That difference alone, honestly, explains much of the energy waste we just accept today. These heating strategies weren't clever tricks, they were necessities. They came from trial, failure, and honestly, even death in extreme conditions. Modern builders didn't forget these lessons because they were wrong. They forgot them because, cheap energy made them seem unnecessary. Now, as heating costs rise and winters remain, just as unforgiving, those old principles suddenly matter again. WWII cabins remind us of something uncomfortable but important. Comfort isn't about technology, it's about understanding how heat actually behaves. And really, history already paid the price to learn that lesson.